Aloha and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Tonight we're streaming live on WCA Facebook page as well as YouTube, which can be found on our website at waimeatown.org. And this recording may be available for later viewing. My name is Nancy Carr Smith, and I am the president-elect of WCA. A couple seats up here. I'd like to introduce the rest of the board. Mary Beth Lachek is the vice president. She's not able to be here tonight. Victor Tom is our treasurer. He's also off island. Our new secretary is Lonnie Olson-Chong. Yay. And our directors are Patty Cook, Greenwell, Chris Long, maybe along, and Whitney Harmon. And congratulations to Whitney and Mike. They have their baby at the end of November. If you haven't already done so, we encourage you to become a member of WCA. You can do this by signing in with Riley at the front desk, or you can join on our website. We appreciate your support. I've been on the board for about 12 years and have escaped being president in the past due to the fact that there's so many good people that were willing to step up and take their turn. So now it's my turn. I feel it's my kuleana to steer the ship into the next year of transition out of the leadership of James Hustace, who we will honor a little bit later. And transition into the future, which will hold the hopes and aspirations of the next generation of Waimea leaders. Our board members will be facilitating meetings, and we will switch a few things up, but we promise to continue to preserve, maintain, enhance, and protect community value by embracing our diversity, which is part of our mission. We haven't had our regular town meeting since October. In November, we had our annual mahalo to first responders. Some of you were there. This has turned out to be a really wonderful event. We're very proud of that. And of course, in December, we had our parade. So those are the reasons that we don't have a regular meeting in November and December. Hope you were able to enjoy the parade as well. We want to thank Tutu's House for hosting us. Mahalo, Sean. Been so good about supporting the entire community, and we really appreciate them. So one of the new things we're doing this year is work to engage a wider bit of the community. And this is by having our pule or our prayer given by a different congregation of our community each month. We realize that there are many faiths that make up our community. We want to honor, respect, and celebrate that fact. So with that, I'd like to welcome Rabbi Mintz here to pray for us, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you. What a blessing to be here with all of you, with all of us. I'm a new member of the Waimea community. Our son is an 8th grader at HPA. And so when people say, how long have you been here? I said, a while, since August. And they said, that is not a while. This feels like a while. So I want to express my gratitude to all of you for welcoming me into this beautiful community and inviting me to offer this blessing. I'm really honored. Great, abundant, loving Akua, divine creator of our universe, of this precious planet, of these sacred islands, may love and peace be bestowed upon all who gather in this community meeting space today. Let us cherish this space, these members of our community, and all the people in our world with respect and dignity. Let us come together with the intention of brotherhood and sisterhood and the common good for one and all. Let us share our thoughts, opinions, and ideas with respect and give us the strength and fortitude to support this community in every way possible. We pray that our elected officials and those who step into positions of power and leadership in our communities be blessed with discerning minds and gentle hands. In the Jewish Bible, the value of humanity being created, B'Tselem Elohim, or the divine image, is central. As we approach this new year of 2024, may this year bring opportunities for each of us to build a more peaceful world where each human being is given the opportunity to live in peace, to experience dignity, and to feel safe and secure wherever they may dwell. With love and compassion, we build a better world. With love and compassion, we can bring peace. With love and compassion, we will be the healers of all that is broken. And together we say, Amen.
Oh,
Very nice.
As mentioned before, we want to recognize James Hustace for his time and commitment to the WCA board the past 6 years, where he was president for 4 years. James has been a steadfast leader of our organization and has taken WCA to another level. His calm and mild-mannered personality and his attention to detail while navigating us through COVID was exemplary. We went from being in person to being strictly online, and now we're in this hybrid setting, which has turned out to be a blessing because so many people can watch us and be a part of this without actually being here. So it's really been a good thing. So we thank you, James, and here's Patty to say more.
I'll make it brief. Thank you. They tell us we're supposed to stand over here, so we're standing over here. Good, stand with me.
Yeah.
Thank you for all being here tonight. This is kind of a goody damn moment in my world. Goody because lucky us, we have this kind of young leadership of willing to step forward and with the kind of roots and feelings that he has about this place and the time he's already invested. The damn part is because we're going to miss him a lot. The good part, I think, of that is that he's actually not going anywhere. So we think he'll still be around and helping us. And for sure, he's already said he'll help us with technology to kind of get us over this first hump. The technology piece that James brought to the table when he first joined us was huge, because who would have thought about pandemic? But with pandemic and the need to stop having public meetings, he said we can continue on, and helped us get through that interesting few months when we were first figuring out how to make this work. It was also an election year, and we knew how important it was to continue the candidate forums that the Community Association has done for 25 years, because that's how the community knows who to vote for. Hi there. Oh my God. So that we had our first candidate forum. As it turned out, it was May of 2020. There was 11 candidates running for mayor that year. Most of, at least 9 of whom we didn't know. And we wanted to know what was, who is this and what's up? And he managed to put it together for us. It was quite an adventure.
Yeah.
And we had almost 7,000 people log in to watch that candidate forum, or a series of forums, which is amazing. Now, tonight we probably will only have 300 to 350 watching in as we meet. Over the next week, that'll be about how many people will log in, but that kind of reach, that kind of reach makes a huge difference in terms of uniting and building this community and making us stronger. So we're incredibly appreciative of that. It actually earned the Community Association a Torch of Light Award from the Big Island Press Club, because it was so exemplary for the whole island. And how do you really sustain yourself and stay connected and be safe and help others learn to be safe. And I got 1 minute. I can finish it up. We're stronger today because of James. We're also stronger because part of what he was able to do is build a board. And our board today is much stronger than it was, for many, many years. It used to be a 1 or 2 or 3 man show, and now it's really a team that delivers the goods. And to have Nancy willing to step up is wonderful. It's really terrific. But we have some new young members. I don't think James is here tonight, and Whitney. Chris. But we do have some new young members, which is also super important to have that kind of. And we have Llewellyn. Board members. Come on in. It's good to see you. To all the board members, thank you, because this is a huge job, and Nancy's going to need your support. And we wish James the best. And we know we'll continue to see you because I think he's got his on him. Besides, but she has this amazing wife who I saw somewhere here. I don't know where she went. But she puts up with all this nonsense. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Wait, what's up? Where you going?
I'll be here in the community. I'll be working with the community, so thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thanks, James, for helping us transition into the world of technology that's a little bit beyond some of us. So, and our
Happy to help.
people are not here tonight, but thank you.
Of course.
Wish
Thank
you
you,
the
Nancy.
best. All right, moving forward, our Waimea Police Department is transitioning from Captain Jeremy Evangelista, who is moving to Kona to be acting major, and transitioning to Captain Lieutenant Roy Valera, who tells me just call me Roy.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. So like Nancy said, I've taken on a role in Kona as the Area 2 acting major. The person who was there took a position in Hilo, so I'll be filling in there until they name a permanent replacement, and Roy has graciously accepted the role of acting captain here in Waimea, so he'll be here in Waimea, I'll be in Kona. All it means for me is that I just added a bunch of districts to my area of responsibility, Waimea being one of the closest to my heart. So I'm still around, I just work in Kona is all. With that, I will pass it over to Roy for the monthly report. So go ahead and take that, please.
Aloha.
Hello.
You know, I just wanted to say that I inherited such a well-organized station. So thank you very much to Acting Major Evangelista.
Yeah.
I've only been there a couple of days. This transition has only began on January 2. And so I had to hit the ground running. But I would like to share some of the stats in regards to some of the crime trends and traffic trends that have occurred in December of 2023. And there has been a slight decrease across the board in the types of calls for service and the types of crimes that have been reported. And those include assaults, burglaries, property damage, thefts, theft of vehicles, as well as theft from within a vehicle. So I think that's a pretty good trend. One thing that I would like to remind the community is we need to take the opportunity away from the criminal. In the crime triangle, you have the victim, the suspect, and the opportunity. If you take the opportunity away, the crime won't occur. And unfortunately, in this day and age, you know, I grew up during a time where we didn't lock our cars, we didn't lock our houses, but nowadays we have to. And one thing that I also noticed when going over some of the stats for December was that if the opportunity exists, the crime will occur, meaning like, especially in property crimes, if you leave something out, somebody might pick it up. If you left your wallet somewhere, somebody might pick that up. If you have tools somewhere that are unsecured in a carport or at a construction site, it might be picked up. So please, let's be diligent and take away the opportunity. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from looking at the crime trends for December 2023. And looking at some of the traffic trends, there was an increase of speeding citations issued. And I don't know if that was because it was the holidays and everybody was rushing around trying to get to here and there and do everything they needed to do. But there was a slight increase in speeding citations issued. The police department here in Waimea was very diligent and ran 17 specific traffic enforcement projects for speed along Highway 190, the Daniel K. Inouye Highway, and along Akonekule Highway. And we also focused on seatbelt enforcement and distracted driving projects. There was DUI saturation projects, and we did have an increase in DUI arrests during the month of December. So please remind your friends and family to think before they drink and drive. As far as fatal accidents, we didn't have any, but we did have, along with the increase in speeding citations issued, there was an increase of reckless driver calls. Now, these are very important to us because you guys are the people out there on the road all the time, driving here and there, and you see these people that are driving recklessly. We appreciate those calls. We try to get out there and try to catch the person. And I want to encourage you to continue making these calls. The last thing I wanted to share is that we're gonna be having a Coffee with a Cop event on January 26th down at the shops at Maunalani. So for those of you who are available, please come visit us down there on January 26th.
Thanks, Roy. I'll just close up with a quick stat. Between December 25 and January 2nd, Waimea, Sakahala District got 29 calls or complaints about fireworks violations. We weren't able to issue any citations or make any arrests for these. And many of the reports came in anonymously. And even the ones where somebody called and left their name, unfortunately, by the time we got there, we didn't observe any illegal activity and couldn't be pointed in a specific direction to hold anyone responsible. Despite that though, please continue to call those in. If you can provide us evidence like video recordings, that'd be great too, and give us official statements. We are willing to issue those citations. We just need witnesses when we don't observe the violations ourselves. And that's all we got. Thanks.
Very much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
After the event is done. All right, next we want to inform you about some upcoming events. Starting with Waimea Arts Council, community art classes this Saturday at Thelma Parker Library. I'm gonna go through these kind of fast. Hope Services is asking for volunteers to help with the annual point in time count, and their training starts next week. Discover Your Kuleana. We'll welcome Pomai Bertelman on January 14th at Anna Ranch. Oh, that's not to be missed. Next is Teen Tech Tutoring, available at St. James starting on January 21st. Not sure exactly, is that teens teaching? Yes, got it. And then the next Waimea Family Food Truck Friday, hosted by Keck, is going to be on January 26th. This is well organized by Now Pocket Events, and again, hosted by Keck. Next is the Walda Keels. If you've heard about this, it's a mobile Vietnam Veterans Memorial replica that's going to be on display in Hilo Bayfront from January 24th through the 28th. Should be something not to miss. Next, we have Councilwoman Evans has asked that we tell you about a virtual town hall that she's going to have on January 22nd. And then save the date for Waimea's famed Cherry Blossom Festival. It's coming to town on February 3rd. We'll have more information about the details of this next month's meeting. And last but not least, the County Planning Department is asking for interested community-minded volunteers to apply for the South Kohala Community Development Action Plan Committee or Action Committee. I've been on that committee when it first started, learned a lot, and I think it's a nice way to get engaged in the planning level. So a lot of the members are expired, they're still there, but they're carryovers for several years. And it was expired. Yeah, so they're holdovers, and so they're trying to fill the seats with some good folks. Okay. All this information can be found on our social media sites and website to some extent. So if you need more details, just let one of us know or look on the social media sites. Okay. All right. Next, I'd like to turn things over to Patty. She's going to introduce the featured nonprofit for tonight's meeting, which is Waimea Resilience Hub. And then she'll lead us into the main portion of the evening, which is legislative priorities and goals with our featured guests. Okay. All right.
Thank you. And on we go. About 3 years ago, we decided that with all of you here, it was a shame not to be able to try to spotlight all of the other kinds of good things going on in our community. So we started to do a spotlighted not-for-profit each month. And so this month is the Waimea Resilience Hub, and representing them tonight is Max Iona. The Resilience Hub He's gonna tell you about it and I might jump in and help, but if you want to come on up and we'll get started. They want you to stand here because the owl likes it. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Max Iona. I'm a volunteer member of the Waimea Resilience Hub. So I need my notes, sorry. And this is my good side. Right now, there are approximately 37 resilience hubs throughout the island. We're just part of one of those resilience hubs. The hub in Waimea started about 3 years ago. And it started with a small group of volunteers aiming towards emergency preparedness. So this group eventually pivoted to food distribution, PPE, they were handing out masks. They're also providing preparedness information, where to get vaccinated, update on services and support programs. And today, our group is led by 20 volunteers. Max Davis, who couldn't join us this evening, is the chairperson of the group. So Max brings a high level of emergency response experience. He is KEC's environmental health and safety officer. He has an extensive emergency expertise as a former paramedic from a family of multi-generational first responders. So we're legit. Our vision here is twofold. First, we're trying to encourage the entire community, which is everyone, to be better prepared for emergencies. Second is to create a Waimea emergency awareness network, and we want to complement the police, the fire, civil defense, and all other responders. Our mission is to connect our community to better inform them for an emergency crisis. And I know I'm, speaking out of terms, but more recently what happened in Maui, we, as a community, that stuff is not going to happen here. But with all your help and how we're going to move forward. So there are two parts to this. First, we're establishing an in-community points of contact to better connect our schools, our churches, and neighborhoods and various pods to inform community during crisis. So what we're trying to do is we're going to be reaching out, and you're going to be hearing from a lot of us, trying to get communities and neighborhoods so that when something does happen, we have a point of contact in that neighborhood, in that church. We're going to connect schools, restaurants, and so that one point of contact will get out like a family tree. So we can be very transparent, so that we don't have to go on Facebook, or there's people who, older people who are not on social media, who don't know what's happening, and we don't want, that same thing to happen where they're left, alone. But we're also fortunate to have Bill Wicking as part of our volunteer group. And for more than 22 years, Bill has led Hawaii Preparatory Academy Science Technology Education Program as an Energy Lab Director and Instructor Systems Manager for the first Living Building Challenge for the LEED Platinum Educational Facility. He is also an outreach coordinator with Cornell, Stanford, and Berkeley. And in his prior position, he provided telemetry communications and systems support for NASA's High Seas Mars Simulation Habitat mission. So once again, we're real, Now, Bill will briefly explain the best practices, like how we're going to get this communication out to the community.
Where's my good side? Sounds so important. I'm gonna try to explain what we're trying to get across with this. So first of all, before I go any further, what we're trying to accomplish here is not to replace civil defense or first responders, any of those networks. That's legit. Okay. What we're trying to do is make layers that are a little bit less formal, but a little quicker than those. So everybody has one of these, and we all know how to use these. This is great for email and for text, but what you may not know is that you guys remember the latest big quake we had a few years ago. This is overloaded because everyone is actually calling you to find out if you're okay. So the cell phone networks are still working. It's just they're overloaded with people calling you from the mainland or us calling out. The same thing happens on a more benign level with parades. You may have noticed at the parade, your cell phones didn't work because everyone was sending videos of the parade, and it basically overloads the network. So this is a great informal sort of a thing, but in an emergency, we're really looking for something that's a little bit more robust. So, and then the other thing is, as a school, we actually have to communicate with other schools when there's a lockdown or some sort of event in the community. And at this point, this has really been done from secretary to secretary. It's very informal, and it's done with these phones. we're trying to come up with something, and we've tried this at HPA, nice to see you there, Lori. We have something at HPA that we actually pay for called Crisis Go, and it's not an option. All the teachers have this, and when it's on your phone, you get a message and it says there's a lockdown or there's something going on in the community. It's not a choice. It basically beeps at you, so it's kind of grumpy, and we complain about it, but it really saves a lot of hassle. So we're going to try to do this in the community, and that's the group that Matt was talking about. So we want some representatives to test this out, see if it works, and we'll go a little further. The second level of this is from the Lahaina disaster. I think some of you guys saw the videos of oblong white platforms sitting out at the beach acting as satellite relays for people that didn't have internet. So what we're really trying to do is we're going to host 3 Starlink internet connections in the community, one at the HPA Energy Lab, one here or at CAC, one of the 2 places, and then a third one, which will be mobile. The neat thing about this, and if you saw this in Lahaina, basically this is a battery-powered satellite link that has a Wi-Fi hotspot that goes for about 100 feet. So you'd be able to drive up to the CAC parking lot or the HPA Energy Lab parking lot, open up your phone or your laptop and so forth, and you'd be able to get a message out to the outside world. Now, this would be a last chance sort of a thing that the internet goes down, you're not able to do anything else, but we're really hoping that this will build resilience. That's what we're talking about in the community if all the other systems fail. And since we're on batteries at the Energy Lab and they're on batteries at CAC, and this is battery powered, this would be a really, really solid way. The last one, which is kind of a reach, and we're really working on this, is a set of radios that actually would communicate through the community on a licensed band. And you have these, they're way more than walkie-talkies, but what they are is they're dedicated to this resilience group. And again, we'd be trying this out with a pilot group of people in the community, schools, churches, some businesses, and so forth. And this is would be if it's not the Starlink sort of a thing. This is like if you imagine your cell phone doesn't work, but you really wanted to communicate with people in the network, this is how this would work. So it'd be kind of like walkie-talkies and a little bit more sophisticated than that. So that's kind of it. Did I miss anything? Anything big? No? Good. I'll be around if you guys have questions about this or anything else like that, but I appreciate it.
Bill?
All right. I wasn't done.
First of all, we want to mahalo the Waimea Community Association for inviting us tonight and to announce this project as we start fundraising. And most of the fundraising is mostly to purchase this technology and start it up to help our community to be safer and better prepared. And we also thank Hawaii Community Foundation, Friends of the Future, St. James, and Vibrant Hawaii for supporting us. And just to let you know, we're all volunteers who love Waimea and in hopes that you will support our project as we move forward. Thank you.
So at this time, Lonnie's going to be passing the Lauhala basket. And anyone that's able to provide a donation to the Waimea Resilience Hub, please feel free. Thank you very much. All right, we'll get this basket going and Patty will go ahead and proceed with the main event.
First, I wanted to acknowledge and thank Cindy Evans for being here. We really appreciate when our electeds do come and show up. Thank you very much. And then we have 2 more electeds with us this evening. The legislature starts on the 17th of January. It's blink your eyes and you'll be here. And it should be a pretty, the word tumultuous comes to mind, session. It's going to be a hard session because of the Maui circumstances. And then how do we fit all the other pieces around that are really urgently needed, and all of our islands and all of our communities have needs. So first up this evening, we have Senator Richards, who's going to give us about 12 minutes and 37 seconds. I'm sure going to get grief about that. But there will be time after his talk to ask a couple of questions. And then we will hear from Representative Tarnas. And then we're going to be hearing this evening from our fire chief, Todd. And there will be time after each one of them for Q&A. So if you do have a chance, please do ask your questions. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for being here, and I promised Patty I'd only have 200 slides. It shouldn't take more than 2.5 hours. I'll get through it pretty quick. Actually, the way I do give talks, I do have, I think, about 30 slides, but I go through them quickly. There's some information on them. You can come back and answer any questions that we may have. This is about priorities going forward, but I also have to set a stage. The reason I'm in the legislature, the reason I agreed to run for office was because of agriculture. So I have to set the stage with agriculture. Boy, it's fun seeing people I know out in the crowd. So, okay, so with that, I guess I just say, go ahead, change that. Yeah, first of all, I want to start with the economy. I'm going to be talking about a few different things. US, and these are a little bit out of date, but we're coming back and spooling them up. I just want to put things in scale for us on what we're talking about here. So US GDP 21.4 trillion, and then the 20.9 trillion, and this is 2020 numbers, and the federal budget 6.6. Next one. GDP from agriculture, and this is kind of a interesting number. Most people don't realize this. In the United States, the total GDP of our nation is less than 1% coming from agriculture, which means if agriculture disappeared, our economy wouldn't see it. Except we would literally starve to death. This is where. Next one. Land use, the map on the left is all spread out. The map on the right is how if we put it all together. And you can see pasture, forest, cropland, special use, miscellaneous, and urban. It's most important to compare that to Hawaii. Next slide. A little bit closely, next slide. And this is kind of an important thing. Pasture and range, national 34%, Hawaii is only 19%. Forest, national 28%, Hawaii is almost 50%. So this concept of needing forest, we actually are way over the threshold. Cropland 20% versus 3%, urban 3.7 versus 4.7. That's understandable. And special use 12.5 versus 25.3. That special use is a little bit different. We have some things here, federal government for one, our parks, our golf courses also come into that. So, excellent. Okay, agriculture subsidies. This is also important. This is all leading up to my priorities, I promise. Okay, US 18 billion, just compare it to other. European Union 100 billion, Japan 65 billion, China over 200 billion in ag subsidies. Next slide. So where are we with ag today? And I'm not going to go through all my slides. That's a different topic. But go ahead. We have 1.4 million people in our state, and anybody who's worked with me understand I'm a numbers person. I have to understand what I'm trying to accomplish before I set a goal and priorities. If we eat approximately 5 pounds of food a day, and that's delivered to the kitchen table, not actually what you consume, but you're going to clean your lettuce and do all that. That means that 7 million pounds of food a day our state goes through. To put that in perspective, that is 7,000 farmers producing 1,000 pounds of food each and every day. We don't have that. No. Next slide. Tourism. I'm a lazy kind of guy, and so just read this stuff in white. I try to do the Cliff Notes version. On any given day, we have about 20 to 25% more tourists here, which adds about another 1.7 million pounds of food. Next slide. And again, GDP from agriculture. I just wanted to reemphasize that 0.8%. Our state is there. Hawaii County is about 4%. We are that much more important for agriculture here. Next slide. And this just is the top 20 commodities. The important number is down here. It's over $400 million for our economy. How big is our economy? Our economy here is about $100 billion. Our county economy is somewhere around 10 billion. It's supposed to be 12, but we had the slowdown, and coming out of the pandemic, we're headed back towards that 12 billion. Next slide. So now here's the priorities. Okay, first we're going to talk about what we've done. Next slide. Three bills that passed, and this first one, Senate Bill 696. This is something that Chief Todd, this was the first bill I got through. And this was because of what Chief Todd wanted to do. It made our volunteer fire departments covered by workers' comp if they got hurt. And we had that woman that got hurt down in Kazuo, and that was the triggering for this. So I'm working with the chief and working with Representative Todd, Chief's brother, we got this through. And so I'm very proud because I was on council when this came through. And it was an easy one. It was an easy one. The other things that went through relating to tropical ag, this is 5 positions for CTAR and also the food safety group. So we can get the food safety certified to get our farmers so they can sell. Next slide. That Senate Bill 1586, ultimately the governor vetoed it, not because it wasn't a good bill, but because it was a union problem when they recategorized the employees. So we're going to be reintroducing that this next year. It was a good bill, just some problems. Resolutions had to do with the Future Farmers of America, Kapuna access to broadband, the Double Bucks program, and then update for Department of Ag. Once again, I want a vision mission of what Department of Ag is expected to do. And a resolution doesn't carry a lot of weight, but it tells the departments what's going to happen if they don't do it. Okay, next slide. And this is just some stuff that came through real quick. $7.8 million for the Kona Airport. Go ahead. And 1.2 million for Panuoka Aina to finally get their kitchen built. So that's coming through next slide. Other capital improvement, the Upolu well, this is something that Senator Lorraine started, 1.5 million. Dave, I think you were involved with that a little bit. Waikoloa Library, 13 million. Palamanui, 500,000. And the Kohala Ditch, 10 million. And these are all funds that have come through. Next slide. Also in this is Waihai Harbor, 14 million for 24 and about 5 million for 25. Onizuka Airport, you see another 4 million. Waimea Airport, 2.8, and the roads and bypasses 9.6. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Go ahead. And then there's a whole bunch of improvements. I'm not going to read all these to you, but you can see these scroll through just what came through. Next slide. Again, funding a lot for the schools. Next slide. This was important. $50 million for Hilo Hospital and about 18 million for Kona Hospital. And I supported both of these, though they're technically not my district, but we all need the hospitals. And our North Hawaii is great, but we also need the support. So this is again for community. Next slide. And here's the grant and aid. And there was a bunch. This is all stuff that came into our county, and we can share this later. But again, I don't want to get bogged down in that. Next slide. So upcoming up for 24. Next slide. There's no way to create a slide about Maui other than just doing this. So the priority coming into the legislature is going to be Maui. What are we going to do with Maui? We have an economy, we have housing, we have health needs, we have a whole bunch of needs, education. So that is going to be a primary focus, but it's not the only focus. We've got other things. I know Rep. Tarnas is going to be talking about some of this stuff, but it is on our mind. The House and the Senate handled their approaches differently. We're going to be coming together so we can craft the legislation we need to help our people out. During that time, that August 8th, it was a bad deal. We had our own fire. And everybody's got to thank Chief Todd because his staff, I don't know if they didn't quit when they were told that. It was very close. And we didn't get there because we have the best firefighters in the state.
We
I'm
do.
proud to say that.
We
So
do.
thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. Next slide. So here's what we're going to get into. That was a bill that 1586. We're going to reintroduce it and recraft it so we make sure we get the right people lined up to get hired. Next slide. This is one 1590. It has to do with expanding meat inspection. And I don't want to go through all the details, but long story short, it's to deal with the overpopulation of deer and then being able to use the harvested meat to give it to the food basket and things like that, but it has to be inspected. And we have federal inspection right now. We're gonna move to state inspection. Lonnie, where are you? How am I doing for time?
Terry's the
Sorry.
timer. I'm
Who's the
sorry, I
timer?
didn't mention
I got-
that.
No, okay, I better pick it up. Go ahead. And this is just part, again, 1590, to talk about that. Next slide. A few more details. Okay, go ahead. Agriculture, transportation, infrastructure. If we grow this stuff, we gotta get it to our market. Our market's Oahu. How? And this is something, this is kind of dusting off, Representative, Cliff Suji. And he wanted to get this done, so I'm kind of trying to pick that up and bring it forward, but look at that. Already have a commitment from Department of Transportation, we're already working on the harbors, but we gotta understand what we want to get done. Next slide. Also, risk to climate change, how is this gonna play into all of this? Next slide. Supply chain, I was in DC a couple months ago, I had a kind of an open conversation with Secretary Vilsack, we talked about our food supply and supply chain, how we're gonna get that done. And it's about being more resilient ourselves. Next slide. We have to assess our water systems statewide. If we want agriculture, we have to understand our water systems. Next slide. One statewide code for ag tourism. Agriculture can benefit from getting some tourism dollars. Tourism can benefit from learning about agriculture. It's all steps, stutter steps we're gonna put together. Next slide. The DOA production and marketing statistics. We need better statistics to be able to make better decisions. Get that back in place. Next slide. Other priorities, education, repair and maintenance, and this is, our schools, teacher housing and farm to table. These things I want to keep pushing forward on. I sit on education, transportation, no extension. Rep. Tarnas and I were meeting with Jill Tokuda yesterday, and we were moving that forward. And it seems like the stars are aligning now, so we will be pushing forth that. We'll be pushing forward for some funding for finishing up the EIS and to take that. We have DOT support, federal support, so it's looking very, very promising. Public safety, Waikoloa sirens. I see you, Terry, I'm wrapping it up. Waikoloa sirens 2, and they should be start construction by March this year, 2024. And then housing, generally just housing. I talked about teacher housing, but also housing. I think this is it. One more slide. So a new direction, agriculture, food, ultimately energy, but self-reliance. That's what I'm pushing towards. And that's my gardening.
We're gonna take 3 questions for now.
Okay.
And then we'll take more later. So if I call on you, you can stand up, say your name, and speak your brief question clearly, please. Diane.
Well, I have more of a thing to keep on the radar, but our kindergartners statewide were recently tested. And only 29.6 of them are actually prepared for kindergarten. So while you're fixing buildings, I also want you to think about what's going on in the classrooms. I know you're on the education committee, so you could help support that effort. And the 3rd grade reading scores are the other thing on my radar.
Mine too. I read the report and it's not good. It's 50% of reading and 25% of the mathematics scores below what's considered normal, and that's below what's considered standard. So we are way down, and that is a big priority of mine. Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
Well, Jared, with their concerned citizen of Hawaii, how would it be possible? Proof of concept. State of Hawaii since 1959 successfully mismanaged every department that they're getting these monies for. How can we get those monies back in the hands of our county council? Because they'll do a lot better job for our county instead of the state of Hawaii, who really not worried about the people and our lands and our agriculture.
Yeah.
We need to get that kuleana back into the county council's hands, because tourism in Hawaii County, we can pay for a lot of things. We don't have to answer to anybody. Let the county council and the mayor guys deal with that, instead of all these monies from all over the place that really not doing nothing for the parents who's been put in court against CPS for the educational board that is not listening to the parents and just streamlining through things, man. We need our parents to be heard. We need our children to be safe. Stop pushing the vax and all this crazy stuff.
Thank you.
So that's not a short answer. You're not gonna get the state, you're not gonna absolve, because there will be a state and it has to do with how we function. But I hear what you're talking about. And one of the reasons that I agreed to go into state government is to do exactly, because I come up from county council. And so I hear what you're saying, and I'm a believer in home rule, but we gotta get stuff done. And the thing is, we have to have the programs in place. The state has more clout than the county does.
Well, we had the programs in place before the state got them.
That's a long conversation. I'd like to have a conversation about this and then we can talk story later, but I know we're on a
One
time
more,
clock
please.
here.
One more question. Anybody have a question for Senator? Go ahead.
Hi, Tim.
Hey, Mark.
Tim, question on, and Julia posted me on this, right?
Of course.
Of course. DKI, that's a joint project with the feds and the state, correct?
That is what we are working towards, yes.
Do you think the state, I know you and I talked before, will be able to raise a certain amount, the amount that the feds are requiring, so the feds will match it?
Yes. And we have Department of Transportation had sniffing full support, get this going. The extension is about 10 miles-ish long. The bill that, the number we're talking about is 120 million to cover any contingencies or things like that. One of the things that we're going to be pushing towards is funding to finish up the EIS. Once we get that, we can go forward. Also, that's really important. The military is very supportive of this. And so with that, there are, I forget what the term is, but I think it's a national security highway or something that has to do with that. And so there is definite support. And we have a commitment from Department of Transportation to get the funding on the state side to match the federal so we can get it done.
Tim, what is that percentage roughly between the state and?
Right now, I'm guesstimating, it depends what we might get from the federal government, but it may be a 50-50 or a 60-40, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Tarnas. My name is David Tarnas. I'm the state representative here, and I'm grateful that I can serve as your state representative and work for you. You are my bosses, and I appreciate this opportunity. As Senator Richards was talking about, when we appropriate capital improvement project funding, we've got to follow up on it and make sure that it actually happens. And sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it doesn't always move. The agencies aren't as efficient as they should be from the state to do things that we need here on this island. I hear what you're saying, brother. So I've been working to follow up on a number of capital improvement projects that we have gotten funded in the past, just to make sure they actually get implemented in a timely manner. The Waimea Safety Improvement Project is a huge one that's going to affect us in town here. Waiaka Bridge. Replacement of Waiaka Bridge and the replacement of that intersection. That's another one that is in the pipeline. It's going to happen, but I'm continuing to urge that along, push that along, and I can give you more details if you're interested. The Daniel K. Inouye extension. We had appropriated money for that before, but it was money coming out of the rental car surcharge fund, and that was just before COVID. And as soon as COVID hit, nobody was renting cars. And so we had no money in the rental car surcharge fund. So it didn't happen. It then was delayed, but we know that it's a top priority for us here to connect West Hawaii and East Hawaii to get the military convoys off of Waikoloa Road. It has a number of economic benefits and benefits to our community. And so we keep on pushing that. Senator Richards and I keep making it a priority. It was a very good meeting just yesterday, I guess, with Congresswoman Jill Takuda, who knows that it's a top priority for us. When she came to Waimea during her campaign, we told her that it was a top priority, and she listened. And so the deal is, the plan is, and we had the U.S. Army, McGonigal, he's a major? Colonel. And he was representing the U.S. Army. We had Ed Sniffen representing the Department of Transportation. He's a director there. We had, the Saddle Road Task Force members were there, as well. And the strategy we're doing going forward is $120 million price tag. State will put up half, the federal government would put up half. It is a defense highway, it's a defense access highway, so the goal is to have the federal government, our congressional delegation appropriate the funds. And they will have it as a priority because it is a defense access highway. But we've got to get the EIS completed, so that's what we're doing. This session is going after the additional money to complete the environmental impact statement in order to move that project forward. Upolu Well, Senator Richards mentioned that as well, is to provide for additional agricultural water in North Kohala, an important project. We've been, both of us been continuing to work on that to make sure it gets implemented. Kanu Okaina, Senator Richards mentioned that, finally get their kitchen going. So we'll continue to work on that. Oh, and Waikoloa Library. We got money, $13 million last year. They're moving forward in partnership with the county. Thanks very much to the county for providing the land. And this year, we're going to go for the balance of the funds necessary to build it, which is another 10 million. It'll be the first and the only community library in Waikoloa. They don't have one. And their closest library is here. So it's so important to get that done. So that's a top priority. Okay, moving on to other things. The other things that we do during the interim is follow up on laws that we pass and make sure they get implemented. And there were several of them that we keep working on that. One of them, fireworks. Yeah, the fireworks task force, the illegal fireworks task force. We set that up. It's all law enforcement agencies that work together to figure out how to intercept shipments of illegal fireworks coming into the state. They finally got themselves organized and they started doing their job, and they have intercepted, I think it's in the order of it's 9 tons of fireworks in the few months that they've been operating. And as we know from the New Year's Eve celebrations, there's still plenty that got through. And so my hope is, and they assure me, the law enforcement community assures me, that because now they'll have 12 months between now and next New Year's Eve, they'll be able to intercept a whole lot more. And so we hope that that will reduce the amount, the number of illegal aerial fireworks that we have here. Another law that we are following up on, it's an oversight committee on which I serve for Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And I want to acknowledge Makai Freitas here, who is a commissioner, and Kanani Kupuniai, who's the kupuna that I listen to when she has things that she wants to make happen. And the Homestead Association has been very important in this. I serve on that task force. We're overseeing and basically working with the department to follow up on, make sure that they wisely spend the $600 million that we appropriated to Department of Hawaiian Homelands to get Hawaiians on the land. And we have been underfunding DHHL for years. Finally, this was a big tranche of money to move them forward on projects throughout the state, including here. So I've been following up on that, and I appreciate Makai's leadership on the commission. He, in our area here, is getting the final agreement from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that they've cleared out the UXO, the unexploded ordnance that is both in Lalamilo and Pukapu. And so finally, we're making good progress on that, where they came in again, did some additional work, and I can fill you in on more details, but that's something that is moving forward. We will have a report on how the status of the Department of Hawaiian Homeland's expenditure of that $600 million. And again, with the goal to get more Hawaiians on the land. I serve as the chair of the committee in the House on the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. So my responsibility includes the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and Office of Hawaiian Affairs, as well as the Judiciary and the Attorney General's Office. So I've been working with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands with Kali Watson, who is the head there, who's a great guy. I think he's a wonderful leader. He was actually the head of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands when I was in office in the 90s, and he's back, and he's had a lot of good experience in the interim as a developer doing work. And that's what we need. Smart development to get these projects moving forward and fully utilize the kind of resources from the state and the federal government to be able to move these projects forward. They have a package of bills that they're proposing. I won't go through all the details, but I'll be working with them to try to move those bills through the legislature, have hearings on them in my committee, and then move them through the legislature. Office of Hawaiian Affairs also has a legislative package. My job is to try to move those bills through as best as I can. So I work closely with the trustees in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and their leadership team to try to work in partnership, because we are partners. We've got to do this. We've got to do what's best for the Hawaiians. And I won't go into the details for their package, but if you sign up for my e-newsletter, you can keep posted on the specifics. August 8th. The fires burned here. And again, thanks to the county fire department and the volunteer fire departments and the farmers in Lalamilo and the quick action of a lot of homeowners, we were able to prevent damage to people's homes. There was still damage to property, but there was not the kind of damage that happened on Maui. You know, our hearts go out to Maui. It has been a tragedy. So we in the House decided that after that fire, we created a series of working groups of legislators to work on different aspects so that we can respond this session in a timely and effective way to what happened in Maui, so that we can, one, address what and try to help Maui rebuild, help Lahaina rebuild. The community has to decide how that's going to happen, but the state has a responsibility to help finance it and some things that we actually are responsible for building. We also have to pay attention that this is something that is potentially a risk statewide. Wildfires are a top priority risk statewide. If you look at the risk evaluation that's been done by a number of organizations, including our own Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, which is based right here in Waimea, they've assessed what the risk is. And if you look at those maps, Oahu has got a lot of areas that are at high risk. Maui, of course, does too. We do also. Kauai does. Every island is at risk. So we have to come up with ways, how are we going to address this to reduce the risk statewide? So we formed 6 different working groups. They're focused on environmental remediation. Specifically, this is for Maui. Their water quality, their soil quality after the fire, because there's real concerns over there. Food, water, and other supplies working group. How do we ensure that we have access and distribution to emergency supplies after an event like that? Because there were some missteps after the Lahaina fire, and people didn't get supplies, they didn't get water. We weren't prepared. And so how do we address that so that we do a better job? Because it was a crisis and there was needless suffering and fatalities because we were not prepared. Jobs and business working group. How do we start building that economy again? People lost their jobs. How do we work and build that back up again? Schools. We lost schools on Maui. How do we make sure we get those kids back in school so they don't miss a year? So we had a group working on that. Emergency and temporary shelter. How do we prepare for an event like this where we have to build temporary housing and make sure that we can have a place to put them? And that it's streamlined, that it's not going to be a problem. And then finally, wildfire prevention working group. I served on the wildfire prevention working group because of my background. I'm an environmental planner by profession. And I was former chair of the Water and Land Committee. So that's an area I know a lot about. So I served on the wildfire prevention working group. We have completed the work of those working groups. We've finished our final report after presenting it and getting public input. And we've included in the report our findings and recommendations, and now we're producing the bills in order to implement that. And so the House is really trying to be organized and thoughtful and work together to come up with that. Now the job is to introduce the bills and work with the Senate to come up with a final version of those so that we can appropriate the funds and develop the programs to address these issues. I'll leave it at that and go to questions, but there's lots of important work that we need to move forward to this session. So I will turn it over to whoever's going to facilitate.
Nancy's going to.
Okay.
Nancy, it's all yours.
All right. Luna, go ahead.
Aloha, David.
Aloha, Luna.
Okay, so.
Gotta make it short.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went over to Maui providing, investigations for any of the survivors. Pro bono, they don't have nothing. I wanna know why we spending any more money on this whole thing with Maui. Why do I have to spend my money for what happened in Maui? Let me explain why. We already had the fire in 2018. Those guys never learned what they are. The mayor, the governor, and the police chief, they never been pulled the manuals.
Yeah.
We ought to have an investigation on how the monies that was to be funded for all of these departments, investigate them.
Yep.
I need somebody to go to prison.
Yeah.
People went die. Kids went die. And these guys are lying. I was there,
All of us.
all on the ground. And when they put them out in the media, they lie. How many kids missing? Why are they not out on the Amber Alert? How come all these missing people not on top of the TV? Why?
And those are great questions, and your passion is understandable.
No, I
There's
agree.
so much
I don't want
tragedy.
somebody to go to prison.
So I appreciate.
You guys gotta do your job.
I appreciate what you're saying, Luna.
Don't spend my money.
I appreciate what you're.
Don't spend my money.
I appreciate what you're saying, Luna. The Attorney General is doing an
She's
investigation.
being investigated.
Okay, let me finish, Luna.
Yeah,
You guys do your job.
I will, Luna.
Luna.
Luna, you've known me for decades. I will do my job, and I know why you're angry. Because people died needlessly. And somebody has to be held accountable.
And they're committing suicide as we
I-
speak.
I get it.
Because of the incompetence and the criminal bullshit happening there, sorry.
I understand, and I understand your frustration.
I know.
Why it didn't work. And I can say that we will follow up.
They're
As
all
the chair-
lying, David.
I'm chair of the Judiciary Committee, so the Attorney General is accountable to our committee. So I will follow up to find out, are there civil or criminal violations
You guys
that
will get
happen?
phone calls from me.
You know, you got my number. You can call me anytime.
Thank you,
Okay,
dude.
thank you. All right, Lonnie, you have something online.
I have two questions, if I may read them coming
Yes.
from online. One is regarding aerials. If my home suffers damage to a neighbor's use of illegal fireworks, can I call civil defense for a damage assessment? The other one is, now that the rental car business is back, is the surcharge being collected? And is it earmarked for the Daniel Inouye extension?
I'll answer the second question first. The surcharge is back. The money is going into the fund. We may use that as the source of the funds that we're going to tap for the EIS and then in the future for construction. So yes, that is a very good possibility. And it's also going to be the source of funds for the Waimea Safety Improvement Project. So we're going to be using it for multiple sources. And yes, the money is starting to flow in. The first question, I'll have to follow up with you on that. I don't know, Chief, call the police. Chief Todd,
So civil defense,
don't call civil defense, call the
yeah,
police.
they're gonna do like mass disaster, then come out to damage assessments on a large scale. If that's more your neighbor damaged your property, in which case a police report would be.
That's the
an ideal
first,
way to
so
go.
the first step is to call the police, report the damage. Identify where the aerial fireworks came from and have them do an investigation. I'd say that's the first step.
Okay,
Okay,
that's good for
thank
him.
you, thank you. I think I got a hook.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be around so I can respond.
We're gonna have more questions
Okay.
time later.
Thank you.
So, the invitation tonight was to talk about legislative priorities. I should note, I work for the county, so, it's not exactly a direct connection. I do get money from the state legislature to manage our EMS program on the island. So, the Hawaii Fire Department basically is contracted with the state to provide 16 ALS ambulances on the island, which are based out of my fire stations. So in some ways I am in contact with them on that. We also run 2 state beaches for lifeguard services. So the fire department on this island is composed of both ocean safety in terms of all the lifeguards at beaches, as well as our EMS system. So we're running your ALS ambulances for 911 services, as well as fire, which is composed of both our career side and our volunteer side. So from that perspective, there isn't necessarily a direct connection for legislative priorities. That said, I, as the fire chief, sit on the State Fire Council, I'm the chair, along with the 4 other county fire chiefs, as well as right now Mike Walker from the Department of Forestry and Wildlife, and Chief Jacobs from the airports. And so the 6 of us are composed of the State Fire Council. And the concept behind there is to help pass the fire code on a reasonable time basis, primarily, as well as the reduced ignition propensity cigarette legislation and management of that. So we meet basically quarterly for that. We do have a variety of things from the State Fire Council level that has been submitted to the governor and the legislature to try and beef up some of the issues that come out of Maui and some of the things that we thought long needed some addressing. And some of that is funding for the Department of Forestry and Wildlife so that their fire equipment can get updated. As you know, on this island, on the 7th, or on the 8th, we actually had 7 fires. 4 of them were in this region and 3 were down in Ku'u. Our response is not as simple as just the county fire department coming. We also had resources out there from the state and Department of Forestry and Wildlife. We had PTA, their fire department was down with us. The National Park Systems were out with us fighting the fire, as well as my volunteers, which allows us to throw a lot of resources in, and we have very, very good working relationships. So one of the things from the State Fire Council is just to support DOFA, because if they're able to replace some of their old fire trucks and brush trucks and things like that, that just means more asset protection on our island. And so we're supporting them. Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization had a variety of requests to try and get projects done in terms of fuel mitigation and reduction products and a few other things. So that's part of our package that was submitted to the governor. You guys might know them. They are based out of Waimea. They were started a little over 2 decades ago as a collaboration between the agencies on this island who realized there was a gap in terms of our overall program, and that was that community aspect in terms of, you know, when you call 911, we're coming, but prior to that, in terms of fuel mitigation or building construction or firewise or, you know, defensible space around homes, as well as the home ignition zone training and things like that, that hasn't been happening. And so Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization is a big partner of us nowadays. And so we're trying to work on that. There's also some other funding requests in there that we think the state should be looking into. One of which was the ability to move assets between islands. And so one of the things we're pushing for is like a helicopter response. And so if you think about the mainland where you have these helicopters coming in and dropping water, while the county does have our own choppers. If you guys remember, approximately 2 years ago, we had the Mana Road fire. I had 9 choppers working on that fire. 5 were provided by PTA. We had a Chinook and 4 Blackhawks, and then I also had my 2 county fire choppers, and I hired 2 choppers that were private to come work for us. We had 9 choppers going, but the state doesn't really have aerial assets. And so one of the things we've been looking for was if the state would be willing to maybe fund, you know, an aerial asset that on each island, if there's an event in Maui, we send all the resources. If there's an event on this island, they could send all the resources, because unfortunately, unlike any place else, like California or all the contiguous United States, people just drive in, right? They're gonna come in, they're gonna help out with that issue and everything else. And you have a hard time to do that in this island. You know, Maui had their issues. Us sending resources over there is actually really difficult because we gotta wait for a barge if we're gonna move any vehicles. Otherwise, we're gonna jump on their vehicles, and they already have everyone working overtime already. So all their vehicles are filled, right? So the ability for us to shift firefighting resources from island to island is actually very difficult. So we're looking at different ways to do that and talking with the governor and the legislature. And I gotta admit, the fire prevention working committee's report that came out, which is online right now, is amazing. I think it's an amazing report that goes into a lot of detail on some of the really in-depth issues that Hawaii faces and what we need to address those. And other than that, that's kind of the general idea in terms of my legislative priorities. And I figured I'd probably give a little more time for questions if anyone has any. Who's gonna moderate that?
Sure.
All right.
Anybody else that hasn't asked a question yet? Patty, go ahead.
Yes, we were lucky on that day by the resources that you have and the support you have as from volunteers and your regular firefighters and the Sarah Foundation and the generosity that they give us. but it really seems like the department is underfunded. Standing from the outside, not knowing your day-to-day. Could you talk about, what we can do to help change that picture? And it seems like you have issues with personnel and facilities.
Yeah, well, you have these wonderful county council members, who do have an effect on our budget. I should note first off, I have a reputation for one of two things. I've been fire chief for 2.5 years now. One is, I have a PowerPoint for that, although I don't want to have one for, I'm trying to bring that reputation down a little bit and stop, sliding people to death. And then the other thing is, he's gonna ask for money. The administration under Mayor Roth has been very generous to the fire department. We are not where we need to be, in my opinion. But our budget has been drastically increased, and we're starting to tackle a lot of the issues that had been the reasons that I put in for fire chief. That said, there's a long way to go in terms of where I think we need to be. And the best way to do that is, when it comes time for the county council in April and everything else, I'm always giving presentations at that point in front of the county council with complete breakdowns of every segment of my department, how much we're funded, where we should be, what the deficit is. Our budget process starts in September for the following fiscal year, which seems nuts, but it's how it happens. And so all my paperwork went in by October, and actually tomorrow I'll be sitting in front of our finance department explaining why I want the extra $8 to $10 million in my budget this year and every year thereafter, until I have too much money to figure out what to do with. Long and short, I think, from a staffing perspective, the Hawaii County Fire Department has been very minimally staffed. Part of the problem is that we're just really stretched out on this island. We have the biggest island. And so to have even a reasonable response time, we've put the stations far apart so that they can respond in a reasonable amount of time. But conversely, we haven't built the staffing up at each station to match what a normal station would be. We kind of just split our guys up to do the best we can. We've opened stations with one firefighter in the past, just so that we'd have a firefighter in a jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And when I joined the department, I remember, Paradise Park, for example, was a one firefighter station. That was it. They had one guy working 24 hours a day, and he'd have to, rip out the engine for cutting apart vehicles that hooks up to the hoses by himself, and chop the vehicle open, and I'll hope that the next guys are coming in soon. So it is much better than it has been, but at the same time, we have a long way to go. I'm sorry if that answer took a while, but I'll take the next question.
So we can testify in front of county council.
It's a two-part thing. Talk with them ahead of time about what you think is an important priority. And then the other thing is when we are presenting on our budgets and everything else, the information is there, and previous year's information is also there, so you can see, what our funding is like. Everything's transparent.
James?
My question is, have you guys ever contacted the military as far as getting like a drive-on fire truck running to a C5 and then flying it over?
Yes, there's problems. Every vehicle that goes on top of one of those aircraft needs to be weighted and approved ahead of time. So there's paperwork on every single vehicle. There's got to be anchor points on the vehicle that allow it to be tied down inside the vehicle. And not all of our trucks are designed or size-wise to make it on there. There's a lot of requirements in terms of the equipment. There can't be loose equipment in the cabinets, and there's all kinds of stuff. It makes it very difficult. Generally speaking, the things that we found that are not so hard to do is to take a Ford 350 or something like that and drive that on and get that locked up and take it over. And the Honolulu Fire Department actually did send some of their personnel and some of their trucks over to Maui, but they had to ship their equipment separate. We were not doing that on this island August 8th, because actually that morning I had a meeting in Honolulu, which the moment we had the fires was cancel, I'm not coming to the HFCA meeting. I'm gonna be in our ELC, we got stuff going on. And we were dealing with that for 3 days. So, Honolulu had gotten the jump on the gun and already sent their resources the day after to Maui. And by that point it was, they've got resources. So we've been sending our firefighters over to Maui to help out with some of the long-term command issues in terms of ICS and structure for the long-term operations that are going over there. So I'm not positive, but I think we have a couple of our personnel today working in Maui to help out with those kind of things.
Can those, new fire trucks be ordered to spec to be loaded onto the airplanes?
Uh,
Fire truck?
I haven't had money to order necessarily a lot of trucks recently, but it gets funky. We'll talk more about it after.
Like with a sky crane, how would that compare with, you said you had 9 helicopters in the air. So how would a sky crane like compare with those 9 helicopters?
In terms of
like.
Water capacity?
Yeah.
Not sure. I'm not sure about the water capacity of a sky crane. I know each helicopter is a little bit different. I should also note, while I'm talking about helicopters, the Sayer Foundation, through generous donors in West Hawaii, is buying us our 3rd helicopter. So we're gonna be picking up a twin engine H-145, which I'm hoping the state help me figure out how to pay for it, because I'll have the helicopter, but I'll need money to like maintain the helicopter and stuff. Then I'm giving us some time. I'll be here after this is over. You guys can come ask me any questions about Maui, about the fire, about what we're doing on this island. I scratched the bare minimum on the things that we're doing. There's a lot going on and we are working on it. And I'm sure that you will have questions and I will be here when we're done, okay?
I just like everybody here.
Yeah. And anyone who wants to come, I'm available.
Okay, Patty, you wanna lead the next set of questions
Yes,
or
I
do you want
do.
me to? Okay.
I was hoping that we could get the 3 of you to come up to the front, so everybody gets real together. Or at least the 2 of you. Maybe we'll focus more on legislature.
Sure.
Because it seems like it makes more sense. We're open to questions. Does anyone have a question?
I have one.
Yes.
So this is for Tim and David too. Waimea District Park. It's a county facility, but our
fatal deadly diseases that this bacteria will cause in us and our children. From encephalitis, I'm sorry, I'm really upset about this. I mean, here we are trying to prevent things, but can you really help us? Because we had a grand jury of 25 people. We sent indictments, 98 indictments. Can you help us
I'd be
stop
happy to
this?
follow up with you on that.
Okay.
We don't have the authority to stop something like that,
You
but
voted for it.
no,
You
actually,
passed it in the House and the Senate.
it's actually, it was done through the agencies themselves. And they had to do an environmental impact statement. I won't go into the details.
They didn't do it. FDA gave an exemption.
I'd love to follow up with you.
Please, thank you. Another question.
I'll follow up.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Hi there.
Hi.
I
know. I'm interested in two things and want to know what the priority is for them. One is affordable food on this island. Particularly, you're speaking of local foods, but they're twice as much in the grocery store than foods that are being shipped in. So I'm interested in that, if there's any legislation that's coming up this term to help reduce the cost of food, particularly local food on this island. The second question I have is, are there any bills in place that are going to address climate change or sustainability?
Okay, real simple questions on that one, right? I'll take a swing at the agriculture side first. Short answer is yes, for local food. The farm to plate initiative is going hard and working hard on the DOE side to get that done. That being said, our local food production, right? When you travel, once you're elected, you look at things differently. I was in France, I was taken there for something a bunch of years ago, and their food costs are very moderate.
In England too.
But they're heavily subsidized.
Yeah.
So is that the right way to do? One of the things that our DOA Carr came up with, we have the double bucks program for people on the EBT cards. What if we expanded that to all residents? So you're not really subsidizing agriculture, but you're subsidizing the cost of food. And so that's an interesting idea. And it's actually something we're looking at introducing. I don't know where we're going to go with that because again, the numbers are there, but so that's from the agriculture side. Your other question
Was around sustainability.
Oh, sustainability. Yeah, and there's lots of conversation on that right now. I mean, as a kid growing up, you go to Kauai High right now, there's that channel that comes in right by. When I was a kid, there was never water in it. Now there's always water. And if, that is about as unscientific as you can be, except it's an observation. And we are already doing that, planning at the legislature, the Senate is, the House is, looking at when we do things like I mentioned in my agriculture review of transportation for agriculture commodities on our ports, we're looking at the long-term, how's that going to fit in? And what do we have to do to modify the changes to be sure that we're being compliant with what is projected to happen?
Okay.
Big Island's a little bit different. And I tell people, Big Island is steep. The other islands are older, so they're shallower. So 1 foot rise here is not that big a deal, but on Oahu, on Kauai, Maui, it's gonna make a lot bigger difference, but nonetheless, we have to look at it as a state.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, I was listening to you guys talk about the agriculture and the different things, and I was wondering, when are we gonna get serious about the agriculture? I mean, you jump in your car, drive down the road, count how many worthless, crappy trees for nothing. I don't know why they're here. Count how many worthless trees there are until you see one tree with food. Is that an accident, or what do you guys think? Do you guys think we should put foods anywhere? The state has 1.5 million acres. Federal government has 500,000 acres. We got 100,000 employees, 150 million a year budget. And we've got every job you can imagine, state lawyer, state doctor, every job you can imagine, state accountant, state electrician. Where's the county farmer? Why isn't there food everywhere? Are we just trying to make ourselves beholden to the boat? We all gonna fight over the amount of food on the boat? What do you guys think? I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you guys. I'm just trying to get you guys into, like, come on, let's feed our people.
And so, are we serious about it? Yeah, I'm serious about it.
About what?
About food production. about being
Well-
self-reliant.
But we don't see it, but we're gonna make steps to do it.
Exactly. And
Answer, please.
the,
I'm trying to get
the
it.
initiative
Hang on.
is to get that done. Okay, and that's why I put up the numbers, so we actually know what we're talking about, what we need to get done. Right now, we don't have the farmers to do it. And if you have the farmers, but you don't have the production, if you don't have the transportation, you don't have the infrastructure, you can't produce what we need to do. We don't have the capacity right now, but there's been a shift and there people want to actually farm now. When I was growing up, they were trying to drive people out of farming to do other things. Now we realize how important it is. And the only reason I agreed to go into politics is because of agriculture. I agreed to do it because I have a passion for that. And I hear you what you're saying. What we need to do is we have to make it available so the farmer can make a living at it. And it's not a second job. It can actually make a living and a lifestyle of it. And that's what we as legislators have to be sure that we have good public policy to get that done.
But so only food can only grow on farms? Why is food gonna grow, I mean, on public lands that we have, or it has to be? Yeah, I mean, in reality, let's not kid ourselves. Every land is agricultural land. You can grow, it could be residential land. You can grow an orange tree, an apple tree in your front yard. I mean, yeah, ulu, whatever it is. What are we thinking about? I mean, the cost of living. I mean, we're over here, we're talking about climate change, but let's talk about our real problems. What are our 5 problems? Well, cost of living is one, but we don't even need that one. The homeless.
We've had enough, and it's your turn, Lori.
Yeah, no, we have a question related to that, though. What bills, if any, are there related to providing or helping to support organizations like the food pantry we have here, with food for people that are in need right now, you know, while we wait to build up our capacity, right? What is there to either support the food basket, who supports all the local, you know, the local food pantries, or what do we have to look forward to next year? I hope something.
Well, that's why these are my priorities. A lot has to do with agriculture. But one of the things that I've realized is, and you know, I'm not gonna speak for Rep. Tarnas, but you cannot have farming without the infrastructure to get the commodity to market. So you have to have both. You won't have farming unless you have the people coming into the farming to actually do the farming. But you can't build one without the other. So you have to build it all up at the same time to get that to go forward. And so FFA, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we were down to 5 chapters statewide. We are now up to almost 30. That's making a difference in the schools. Okay. Next step, water and land availability, but not just availability, you gotta have tenure too. And so we have to have good public policy. And whether it's state land, private land, doesn't matter. If we have the infrastructure for water, as well as the long-term leases, the problem is people who don't understand agriculture, they go, well, I gave them a 5-year lease for, you know, whatever. So why bother? Why bother? 25, now you got my interest. And so we have to change a public policy to get that going. And there is a shift coming. We are doing that because there's an interest now, but we have to do it all at the same time.
Funding, I think, is probably gonna come through grants and aid. Because the state can fund nonprofit organizations through that. It's not the most efficient administration. I know there's problems with grants and aid, but that's the one that I think when there are programs like the food bank and the food basket that are applying for it, they would get priority because of what our experience just this last year.
But
So that's
this last year, yeah, this last year was, everything got pushed off the table.
And Lori?
No funding at all. That's not
Chief
acceptable.
Todd, can you tell her about the county, the new county?
Why?
New county, what?
The grant.
Where you were just
Actually,
telling
single
Oh,
us
yeah,
about
yeah.
this, and you're
Sorry,
single.
sorry. I was like,
For
wow.
nonprofits.
So the county council and the
Yes,
mayor and whatnot have put together a program for grants and aid for 501c3s. You can apply for up to $50,000 per project. Each 501c3 can apply for up to 2 projects per year. So there is some ability out there for funding that kind of stuff, or interesting projects and whatnot for a 501c3.
Gotta speak up. Due date, January 31st. You
Right.
find it, it's so hard to find. It's
Yeah.
Department of Finance.
It's on our website.
On
On our
You go to
Facebook.
Department of Finance, it's
Yeah.
on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
One
you.
called Bye
One more
Bye.
question.
Bye.
Go ahead.
Oh, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Can you help us, we the people, get a sheriff that we elect, that's not appointed from top down? How do we do that?
Sheriff?
The next
Yeah.
election,
Sarah.
the next election,
Now, this year.
this coming election.
No,
hopefully-
I'm not, let's talk, because I'm not quite sure how that would work. We have a sheriff,
Constitutional, from the Constitution.
so let's talk, because I can understand, so I can understand what you're asking for. So maybe we can talk afterward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to ask one more
Sure.
question that has to do with the lapsed DOE money. How much is that, how is that affecting Hawaii, your districts?
I checked on the list in our school, at least in House District 8, that we're not on that list.
Fabulous. What about Senate 4?
Yeah, we have in Ponaka'a. And yeah, that's almost $500 million that's
Yes, that's
lapsing.
what it is.
When I read that,
We're all very upset.
yeah, so, to the point on that, though, what are we gonna do about that? I do sit on education. I'm not sure how we're gonna handle that going forward right now. But I did talk to, and one of the things that is a little bit unique is that for the county, for the neighbor islands, our maintenance and repair, which is where a lot of this help that we need for our schools, is actually DAGS. It's the Department of Accounting and General Services. It's not DOE. And that is one of the stutter steps that we're having. So we're not, and that's CIP money that would be coming forth that should be used. But anyway, I don't have a good answer for you on that one right now.
We may reauthorize some of those
Yeah.
funds, and I think that's what we're doing right now in the House, is looking at that list and seeing what we can reauthorize.
But it also seems like capacity in the department.
It's a huge systemic problem. I mean, Randy Tanaka was booted, and they don't have a new one. And now he works for Senator Moriwaki, but they haven't even replaced him yet, so they're short-staffed there, so their capacity is really questionable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lots of great information. I think you guys should maybe try to get contact information for these guys. So they can talk further. Our meeting next month will be checked. And that's good for me.
Hi, Jerry. You guys can adjourn. Yeah.